July 1970, Florence, Oregon, USA. An 8-ton sperm whale is found washed upon the beach dead, leaving officials scrambling for a way to clear the beach of the unsightly mass. Strangely, the responsibility for removing the whale fell under the jurisdiction of none other than the Oregon Department of Transportation.
It had to be said, the Oregon State Highway Division not only had a whale of a problem on its hands, it had a stinking whale of a problem.
And little did they know it, the decisions that they were about to make would propel them into viral video stardom decades later. Reporter Paul Lindman and cameraman Doug Brazil of KATU TV were the lucky ones assigned to cover the story.
What to do with one 45-foot, 8-ton whale dead on arrival?
Some of the options they considered were burying it whole, cutting it up and burying it in pieces, even burning it. But after consulting with the United States Navy, their solution? Why not remove it the same way they remove big highway boulders? Just blow it up. The thinking was that the exploded whale would end up in small enough pieces so birds and other scavengers could easily clean it up naturally.
Well, I'm confident that it'll work. The only thing is we're not sure just exactly how much explosives it'll take to disintegrate this.
The engineer in charge kind of left and went off to a place to go hunting. And the guy left in charge of it on scene was the guy who had limited experience in explosives. But we didn't really know that.
And it was estimated it would take 20 cases or a half a ton of explosives to do the job right. They would strategically place the dynamite on the leeward side of the whale so it would explode towards the ocean.
It was a great day at the beach. I'd say carnival-like, unless you were a state worker. They were busy setting the dynamite and stuff, but people were excited about it. They were anticipating a good show.
The crowd of curious bystanders were pushed back a few hundred feet from the danger zone, and in one thunderous blast, the plan was implemented.
As soon as it blew up, pieces were going probably a couple hundred feet into the air, and we realized that some of the pieces were actually rather large, which is the reason we picked up our camera gear and started running.
In a moment, the air turned from excitement to sheer terror as massive chunks of whale rose into the sky and fell crashing to the ground as far as a half a mile away.
The bystanders are basically running for their lives, much like Paul and I.
When this stuff started hitting the ground around us, which was blubber, it was kind of making this thunk, 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 thunk sound. And it was then that we realized that we were in mortal danger.
As they were running for their lives, they heard what sounded like another explosion.
We were clueless about what that was. It was ahead of us, and that was a piece of blubber hitting Walter Umenhofer's Oldsmobile, the car you see flattened in the video. And I honestly believe had it not been for that car getting flattened by that one coffee table-sized piece of blubber, this thing wouldn't have lived on as it has.
The images of the flattened car offered up definitive proof of the magnitude of the blunder. But for those who were there, it may have been the rotten stench that was more seared into their memory.
I can still conjure up that smell almost 40 years later. We smelled so bad that when we got back into the aircraft to come back to Portland, just on the basis of how we smelled after the thing blew up, the pilot threw up.
Although at the time it was not a big national story, news of the debacle spread quickly through government agencies.
People started asking for copies of it immediately, people and organizations. We're talking hazmat teams, police departments, state agencies, federal government agencies.
Even U.S. senators were calling for their very own copy.
They always seemed to present an official reason as to why they needed it. We saw that immediately as BS. And Doug Brazil, the cameraman that shot the film and was originally responsible for sending it out to those requesting it, kind of made a personal rule. If they made it all official, he wouldn't send it out. If they would admit somewhere in their letters or in their inquiries that they just thought it'd be fun to see, he'd send it out.
And the video lived in the hands of a small few for so many years. It got national attention in 1990 when Dave Barry wrote an article about the event. But it was the proliferation of the web that has given the event the exposure that it truly deserves.
Now it's so easy for people to actually get the video, watch it on their home computer screens.
In the last several years, it has become a cultural icon, with websites dedicated entirely to the catastrophe. On YouTube alone, the video has over 1 million hits.
It's now become what some have described as being in the top 5 viral videos around. it's really garnered quite an audience out there.
In case you're wondering, these days if a whale does wash up on a beach, if it is in a populated area, they usually bury it or at times tow it out to sea. In a rural beach area, it disintegrates naturally. But lucky for us, Paul and Doug were there 38 years ago when they did things a little bit differently.
It might be concluded that should a whale ever wash ashore in Lane County again, those in charge will not only remember what to do, they'll certainly remember what not to do.